What are all these programs running after I boot Windows? Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. It's like the perennial question. Why is there so much stuff running when I boot Windows? And as is so common, there's not a simple answer. It can be quite complicated. However, we can look into things and at least classify some things as to things that are expected, unexpected, but maybe needed, unexpected, but maybe not needed, and of course, things that are absolutely not required at all. So, the biggest bucket that I think is important to be aware of are what I call tools you use. For example, if you install backup software and expect it to back up automatically without your having to do anything, very often they will install a piece of software that starts at Windows startup and keeps running and basically initiates the backup when the conditions are right. Another example might be something like Dropbox, which is a tool that handles synchronizing files as they change on your machine. Almost by definition, that needs to have a piece of software running at all times and that starts automatically when you sign into Windows. Now, there are other tools that kind of sort of fall into that same bucket, but you don't necessarily need them. For example, there are tools that install software that runs on startup and actually keeps running all the time, whose only job is to check for updates, to see if the software, whether or not you're actually using it, has an update available and needs to be downloaded and installed. My preference for those is, of course, to check when you actually run the program. You don't need to have something running all the time. But for whatever reason, software does occasionally fall into that bucket. So what do you do? How do you get rid of some of these things? Well, there are a couple of approaches depending on how deep you want to dive. We'll start with Windows Task Manager. So I'm over here in Windows 11, I'm right-clicking and we'll click on Task Manager. In this case, Windows Task Manager has this item called Startup Apps. In Windows 10, you'll find it on a menu across the top. Here you can see I've got a bunch of different things that supposedly all start when I sign into Windows. I'm using 1Password. I want that to be running. I long ago disabled Cortana because I never use it. Dropbox, as I said, is important. Microsoft Teams, I never use it, hence I've disabled it. Microsoft Edge, OneDrive, Reflect, which is my backup software, the Security Health Sys that's part of Windows Defender, Windows Security. These are all things that you may or may not want to have running on startup. Pretty much everything in this list is safe to disable. And in case you're curious, right-clicking on it has the disable item, or if something is already disabled, you can see you can re-enable it by right-clicking on it as well. I'm not going to change anything on this system because it's exactly the way that I want it to be. These are the things that I want to have enabled and disabled on this particular machine's startup. Notice that you can in fact sort by startup impact. How big of an impact do these items have on the startup process? That I personally find that less important than simply understanding which program it is that's trying to start something at startup. Now, unfortunately, this is a very small, a very narrow view into all of the different things that happen when you boot your machine or when you sign into Windows. There's another tool that I'm going to suggest you at least know about called Autoruns. We'll go ahead and see the web results for that because we're going to go to Autoruns for Windows from sysinternals. We'll download it. I'm going to go ahead and open it. The tool that I want is Autoruns 64. We'll copy that. We will copy and paste that to a different folder. I'm going to just go ahead and paste it in this temporary folder and double click on it to run the utility. Now, you'll notice that it'll actually take a few seconds to populate with a bunch of information associated with Windows. There's a lot. I cannot overstate just how many different things are in this utility. You'll notice that it defaults to showing everything. These are all of the different things that run automatically or that are shell extensions or that have registry entries that cause them to start up at different times in the boot process. More options than are displayed in Windows Task Manager. There's a reason for this. In Windows Task Manager, you'll notice that I said in the Startup tab, playing around there is pretty safe. You can disable things, and chances are the worst that'll happen is you'll miss some functionality, you'll go back to Windows Task Manager, and you'll re-enable whatever it is you disabled. However, Autoruns is not necessarily that forgiving. Many of the items that run automatically and that are listed here in Autoruns are core components of Windows, meaning that if you disable them, if you remove them, if you do something to them, you could render your installation of Windows unbootable. Obviously, you don't want to do that. So I have two recommendations. One is, well, don't, unless you need to, unless you really feel the need to go deeper than what Windows Task Manager offers you. The other option, though, is that if you feel the need to play with this, take a complete system image backup first, so that no matter what happens, no matter what you do, you can always restore to that backup image and get back to wherever it was you started. Now, the other thing that's very important to understand about Autoruns is that unlike Task Manager, which had a disable enable, all you can really do with Autoruns is delete. Delete means delete. That means it's going to be gone. There's no undo. There's no easy way to put it back other than restoring to the backup that you took previously, or in the case of a specific program, like say, for example, if I happen to accidentally delete this 1Password entry, I could reinstall 1Password. But if it turns out to be a system required function, then generally you're talking about either repairing the system or restoring the backup you took before you did anything. This is deeper than I recommend most people go. But when it comes to the kinds of things that are starting every time you fire up Windows or sign into Windows, well, you now have an idea of how many different things get started automatically, how complicated the process is, but you also have this window in Windows Task Manager to a number of things you can control, disable, or delete. For comments, for updates, for links related to this topic and more, visit askleo.com/1847. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.